you go. So here you can see, you go to the little globe here, choose your interpretation. You have 4 languages in which we are going to be operating today. There is Spanish, hay portugués, hay castellano, et il y a du français. So please, hopefully that works. And we are going to repeat those instructions from time to time. So hello, everyone. My name is Anabela. I work for the Climate Action Network International. And it's a real pleasure to welcome you to this call, to this meeting that is organized by the Cúpula dos Povos. As you know, it's a global effort spearheaded by the Brazilian social movements, but rallied up by movements around the world. I wanted, as I said, we have interpretation. Let us know if there's anything that is not working in the chat so that we can fix it. I will be co-chairing this seminar with Francisco Kelvin Nobre da Silva. I will let him introduce himself, I guess, in Portuguese. And we will test our interpretation. Go, Kelvin.
Hello, good morning to everyone who are following our webinar today. Thank you, Anabela. I am Francisco Kelvin from the International Coordination for the movements and for the Brazilian movements and people summits. We are having this webinar here today, and we welcome all of you to this space. Our first webinar for the EXO3 of the People Summit in this process of convergence. We have about less than 2 months before the summit in Belém.
Obrigada.
During the COP30.
Friends, right now I'm speaking in English. Later I will go back to my language. But to welcome everyone into this space. A few words on what are we going to be doing today that we wanted to share with you, and hopefully this helps walking you through what's coming. So that is sorted now. First, you are going to hear a very quick introduction from Kelvin on the Cúpula dos Povos process and the work that has been done until now on the just, popular, and inclusive transition. Then we are going to have an amazing panel made of voices from different groups and geographies, bringing to us some key inputs on what people's demands on a just, popular, and inclusive transition should look like as we prepare for the Cúpula dos Povos, for the People's Summit. Then we are going to be moving into breakouts to go a little bit deeper and also hear from you all on what those demands should be looking like, what our proposals look like. And then we are going to wrap at the end with the report back from those breakouts and outlining a bit more the next steps for us. So without further ado, I would like to pass on to Kelvin to walk us in the progress up to now. Kelvin, I can just keep sharing the screen if you prefer, or you can do it. What do you prefer?
Por favor, Anabela, se puder continuar.
Continúo, perfecto.
Yes,
continúo,
Anabela,
continúo con la compartilhada. Dices. Kelvin, para ti.
O próximo slide, por favor.
Next slide, please. Just like Anabela said, the summit, the People Summit, is a convergence process We have been meeting for the last 2 years in this historic protagonism, not just for Brazilian civil society, but also for the whole world, facing huge events like we have in Brazil. So it goes back to the global forum that we have in 1992, social forums, Rio +20, all the summit processes that have been organized during all the COPs throughout the world during the historical period. It has been a convergence process that has been rotating around 6 great exos. Ours is exo number 3, which is popular and inclusive and just and fair inclusion. This has been a space for organizations, for the convergence of organizations around these big topics. At the same time, it has been the way through which the People Summits has gaining territories, meaning we have been going directly into the communities and into the organizations, strengthening our roots, our bases on our lands, not just in Brazil, but in other parts of the world. So it's an event that has as its goal the work around the axis. So in our axis, the inclusive transition, we had some initial elements and we had some debates, which we can share some debates to those who did not had access to the initial points. But this is the first webinar we're doing with more than 1,000 organizations that are signatories and are in the process of the People Summit. So from our axis, our proposal is that this convergence axis are not only a process for the transition, but at the same time, they'll be the basis for the construction of a political declaration at the People Summits in November in the city of Belém, state of Pará. So we'll disseminate our processes of incidence. At the same time, in our program for the People Summit in November, where we are expecting more than 10,000 people, we are going to have some plenaries, and there will be the consolidation of all this joint work we have been doing. We're also going to have a plenary showing all our journey, and at the same time, we'll have some joint activities as part of the program for the People Summits. So these joint activities of the transition axis will be based on the discussions of the topics that we've been working on, and it will be the fruit of this process. So here's the idea, that we have a document, a joint formulation of the topic of transition between now and October, and that we use that for programming our activities in the plenary, our co-activities that we will organize, and also the final declaration.
Anabela?
Thank
has
you.
been
Thank you
designed.
so much, Kelvin, for that quick introduction. You all got in the chat a link to basically that initial work that was starting the conversation on all of the axes, and this is also translated in all the languages. You can access it, have a look. And as you do that, we wanted to kick off our conversation with an amazing panel, as I said, coming from very different but convergent social movements, with their reflections on what this just, popular, and inclusive transition needs. What do we need to do? What needs to be done so that we advance a just, popular, and inclusive transition? So we would like to start this panel with Kaira Resse from the Trade Union Confederation of the Americas. Our comrades in the union movement have been leading this work for many, many years, and also bringing, of course, the voice of all workers into the conversation. And so, Kaira, please share with us in a few minutes what are those key points that you would like to share with us all as we start working on this work moving towards the Cúpula dos Povos. Kaira, over to you.
Good morning, everybody. From our workers' union to the CCA, which was founded in 2008 as a representation of 55 million workers in the Americas, who are part of 50 organizations in 21 countries. We have been working in the dynamic of environment and work. For us, the CSA, is important to talk about all these topics from different perspectives and affectations to the workers in the framework of job loss, risks at work, where the increasing work risks at the workplace happen, the heat stress for farm workers. For us, it's important when we also talk about displacement of work, people in Latin America, and the Americas, also the climate events, external climate events that impact or modify the activities, the economic activities of workers, and also in a culture where there's no place for unions when it comes to democratic solutions to this crisis. This is the initial context that brings us to a moment of recognizing this entire articulation between work and people, and because these are not opposed categories, but it's a union aspect. And in this framework, for us, it's important to see, when we talk about just transitions, to have the unionized perspectives, where it could be possible to establish that a just transition can be linked directly, or centralized at least, with the rights of workers and their communities. It's not just a transition from one low carbon economy, but also towards a social economy, environmentally sustainable and gender just. So these transitions in this framework of transformations can also affect the digital and energy transitions, and especially the economic model transition. So unions must be a central actor in this process, guaranteeing the respect to the fundamental rights, especially liberty for union and organized liberties as well. This is a fundamental principle, central principle, which has a holistic reach, and it goes all the way to productive aspects as a way of the livelihoods of communities in the territories that are affected by this transition. So for us, at CSA, where we are centered in terms of our demands along this process of preparation, which is historical in the different COPs, but particularly in this coming COP 30, the centrality goes around what we call popular, inclusive, just transition, which is equitable and feminist. So this just transition on our demands towards this preparation that we're having for COP 30, we are preparing also with an international union confederation, but also from our organization as a collective construction, as a popular member. And that's why we are here in this construction space. And our demands that we generally accompany on around climate finance, facing false solutions, the lack of fulfillment of the financial commitments, and without a new cycle of debt, and we defend and promote a broad definition of this just transition with the centrality of work and social justice. And we are amidst a dispute around the alternatives to this climate crisis and the answers from a just transition. Finally, I'd like to say that there's also a regional perspective that we must talk about, that we need to put this up in the agenda and centered around the discussion of financial aspects of programs around just transitions at the national levels, including the demands of workers that impact regional articulation, with a commitment, a greater commitment from governments, with a clear climate agenda, which is too ambitious, but we are not alone in this fight. For us, this just transition concept must be part of an agenda, of a consensual agenda with the unions, but also in a consensus with other social movements who are allies, and we are building this together. That's why we are in this space. And for us, this is a new dimension with regards to the environmental aspect that we see as a very important aspect of CSA, but it marks also our struggles in spaces such as the Continental Day for Democracy and Against Neoliberalism. And it centers a topic around the integration in the processes such as the Continental Day and the Caribbean for the integration of the people. So that's why this is a place for struggle of workers' unions, but also as part of the communities and as part of other movements with the workers, but also putting this at the center of the just transition, the topic of work. So that would be our proposal. Thank you, Anabela. Thank you so much, Caio, and I'm sure that among the 150 participants that we have in today's webinar, many people who we have welcomed, they, as many others in their different movements, we are also welcoming them, and you can also write your questions in the chat. And thank you all, thank you, Caio, for this first intervention. I know there's so much to say. I'd like to invite now Susan from the World Women's March. Can you hear us, Susan?
Hello. Hi.
Okay, so yes. So please remember, everybody, there's the interpretation icon. Remember to choose your language, even those who are quite used to speaking in English. Please set the mic to whichever language you will be listening into, so that we can use the services of our professional interpreter. Susan, so I will pass it on to you from the Global March of Women. You don't need any presentation, but it requires the reinforcement of the feminist movements and in this space of debate for just transition. So Susan, your ideas in a few minutes of what we need to bring and to do as soon as possible for this just and popular transition. Susan, over to you.
Okay, thank you so much, sister. Hello, everyone. My name is Susan from World March of Women Indonesia. So if you talk about just transition, it's a quite challenging term that now we are facing, like in many where. The thing is, if you talk about how the COP30 are going to be carried on, there will be a lot of people going to involve it, and then we learn from Paris Agreement until today there is a lot of climate agenda that already been tried to pursue by every nation. But the things that it happens, I think, in the perspective of women, the just transition until today is still facing a big challenge because we see how the concept development that been carried on in many countries in the globe still focus on how to gain a lot of interest as much as they can, and it's not aligned with what we are dreaming in the just transition itself. For example, in Southeast Asia, we know there is a big and huge economic perspective, that what we call as green economy, and then also it's now being moved to blue economy. I think this is not only happening in Southeast Asia, in Asia country, but also around the globe. The concept of the blue economy that has been carried on is one of the thing that want to gather between the just transition and also about economic aspect. But the thing is, sometimes in the progress, in the process of how we are going to get the just transition, there is some part of that we have forgot how to ensure that all the women especially become part of the just transition itself. For example, like in deciding what is the concept of just transition, sometimes there is no participation of women but be part of it. The perspective of women has been forgotten. And then, for example, like in promoting renewable energy, renewable transition or whatever it is, sometimes what they are being promoted is how they change from fuel dependence into like more like electric things. But we mostly forgot that for example, changing by using the electric car, there is a lot of area that has been being trapped in the nickel mining, and there is a lot of area that has been affected because of the nickel mining in the name of just transition. And then also there is also the solar panel project that has been carried on, and it grabbed a lot of land and also ocean, especially the silica glass item that has been become the queen of this concept of the renewable energy. The thing is, if you talk about just transition, there is a big question: where is the woman are going to stand in the middle of this? Because what we are see that there is no meaningful participation about this concept, that woman has not been promoted or even getting involved in how they are going to decide what what they want to use, what is the thing that they want to propose related to their land and their ocean. And it became a lot of ocean and land grabbing happening all around the globe, especially all the women inward martial women facing the same problem. The other thing is what we are important that related to the climate, there is a lot of thing that has been promoted, especially related to this fall solution. Some of the big conservation organization, for example, they are promoting about how they are going to carry on the climate agenda without concerning about the right holder. There is a woman, and then they promote. Sorry to say, but they sometimes promote eco-fascist conservation that going to evict women from their land, from their ocean, in the name of the climate. But the thing is, they forgot about the relation between women, the holistic relation between men, woman in to their land and then to the ocean. That's a problem that has been facing out by all the people around the globe. What we are thinking that if we talk about COP30, it's a chance also. It is a challenge for us because we've been talking so many times in COP30, in COP, not only in the COP30, what we see that there is a lot of actor, including capitalists and then also another oligarch, also speaking about the climate issue, but in the name of profit and their own benefit, they use the hidden agenda on this forum. The challenges for us, that how we are going to ensure the woman, especially, have the right to choose, have the right to their land and to the ocean. And then what also important that we have to stop the false solution in the name of food crisis or even climate crisis, because we are the right holder, the women are the right holder. We're supposed to have the 100% right to choose what we are going to do with our land and with our ocean, and then how to ensure that we are not going to be affected by this kind of big project. I think that's the thing that we have been fighting for. And then the other thing that's for the woman, under World March of Women, we also promote feminist economic solidarity. It's part of how the mechanism how we fight against capitalism and then the challenges that facing today. Solidarity, feminist economic solidarity is become the key how the women are going to mobilize themselves, how they supposed to gain their economic life in a very just way. And then that's the thing that should be also promoted in the COP30. There is the thing that woman has been doing in many years, and it's supposed to be promoted in COP30 instead of each of government are going to promote the blue carbon and so on. I think the agenda has supposed to be promoted about the movement of the local people, but the woman that has been protecting the ocean. There is a lot of champion that there is a lot of champion that already comes up, and it's supposed to be we're supposed to give the spotlight to these people because they are the genuine warrior, and then especially the woman who protecting their mother earth. I think instead of promoting the false solution, we should challenge to another champion in the local bases that already uh, bloom in every area. I think that's all. Thank you, sister.
Thank you so much, Susan, and so many important points. I mean, first, how the transition is being used and weaponized against communities, against women, whether this is about land grabbing, energy, I mean, like mineral extraction, or even around this eco-fascist conservation, as you were referring to. But also on the other side, who are the people that we want to put at the center of the solutions, and the importance of the just transition conversation, centering them. And then, of course, all the questions that we probably all share about then what does it mean in terms of COP, with all its flaws and yeah, the challenges we face in those multilateral spaces. I will hand now to Kelvin to keep now with the panel that is coming, so that you don't get too tired of me too fast. Kelvin, over to you to continue with our panel.
Bem,
Thanks, Annabella. In the same line, moving forward in these apports, we would like to invite Ian Rivera in the Philippine movement for climate transition. 6 minutes, please.
Yeah, greetings, comrades. This is Ian Rivera from the Philippine Movement for Climate Justice. For us, we define just transition as the socio-economic and political transition of the society from the current unsustainable oppressive neoliberal economic system to a system that sustains a just, equitable, and sustainable economy in accordance with the science to ensure that the average global temperature does not exceed 1.5 degrees, ensuring the stability of the Earth systems at the end of the century. The character of the transition places at its very core the mobilization and action of the workers, the people and the most vulnerable sectors, groups, peoples of the society, ensuring that industrial development for people on the planet does not impede ecological balance, people's rights, and ensure protection from displacement, alienation, from the economy in transition. Just transition must be framed within the notion of climate justice and ecological debt, taking into account the historical responsibilities and obligation of carbon-consuming economies and corporations. So for us, the basic elements, demands, and proposals of the just transition is one, we need a wide-ranging, large-scale, rapid, and systemic transformation to limit the rise of temperature to 1.5 degrees centigrade. We need to struggle to push for a global peak in the use of fossil fuels by 2025. rich polluting countries must decarbonize not later than 2030. The rest of the countries, including developing and least developed countries, must decarbonize not later than 2050. This means, among others, a rapid and full phase out of fossil fuel energy systems into 100% renewable energy systems, replacement and rebuilding of new technologies and infrastructures, basic changes in industries and agriculture. Some will have to be phased out, some will have to be overhauled, massive changes in land use, economic diversification, and massive ecological restoration to be undertaken. Finance and technology flow from rich developed polluter countries to countries of the South as a matter of justice and reparation to enable the countries of the South to make their energy transition and rebuild a national economy that is dependent on externalities, extractives, and an economy that is premised on destruction, surplus extraction, war, and aggression. While a rapid, just, equitable transition path is urgently needed for this process to happen, is the establishment of a climate justice movement that will push for the just transition under the current neoliberal state. And at the same time, the people's movement will pursue the primacy of establishing a democratic state and a government that will undertake the just transition with the task of building and rebuilding society and the economy at the scale and speed needed to reverse the small window of catastrophic climate change. A just transition for us is not just about ending emissions of greenhouse gases, stabilizing Earth's temperature. We ended up with this problem in the first place because the extraction, production, distribution, and consumption modalities of current system are not driven by providing the people's basic need, but by the accumulation and concentration of wealth by and for elites and corporations at the cost of the people's health, lives, and livelihoods, including the unrecognized and unpaid social reproductive work of women and the destruction of the environment. Nature, its products, and its functions have been privatized, commodified, traded, and profited from. This logic and nature of the system must be stopped. We must transition to a new world order where commons are recognized and respected, resources and benefits are democratically and equitably shared and managed, and where extraction, production, distribution, and consumption are carried out within the limits and compatible with the health of the planet and its ecosystems. Otherwise, humanity will continue to face environmental and ecological crisis. Thank you very much.
Thanks for this critic view for the contradictions in this moment that has deepened the climate crisis. And following in the sequence, I'd like to invite our comrade Marina Rivor. I hope I said her name correctly, from the Transition Network from Africa. Marina, please, 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Try. Hello, everyone. It's Marina Agotemevo. Yes, thank you very much. Yes, so for us, it's similar to what Ian just said. We are also seeing like how do we make sure that the definition of just transition is not captured or co-opted by the fossil industry, and then defining our own just transition as Africa. And when it comes to the just transition, one of the main things we are calling for, demanding for in Africa is energy for people, not for profit. Am I going fast? Okay. 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 Okay.
Excusez-moi, Élisée, en fait, je sais que vous êtes interprète. Est-ce que vous pouvez vous mettre en muet pour qu'on vous passe dans les canaux d'interprétation, s'il vous plaît? Parce que du coup, quand vous parlez, ça apparaît pour tout le webinaire. Donc, je vais vous mettre en mute. Marina, go for it.
Okay, thank you. So I was saying that we are actually calling and demanding in our just transition process and definition for energy for the people and not for profit. We are talking about phasing out of from fossil fuels. But it's more about wherever we are going to the new energy that we are calling for the clean energy system. It's about who controls it and who is in charge of it, who owns it. And so we are calling for a community-owned, people-centered renewable energy systems with local access, local benefits, and democratic participation of the people in the communities. And we are also working on how to develop African-led principles and safeguards to ensure that large-scale renewable energy systems do not repeat the harm of the extractive industry. The second thing that we are also looking at is how do we end fossil fuel financing, because it keeps on happening with coal, oil and gas, and the financing keeps on coming to Africa. So then how do we make sure that the financing is not coming in, but it's actually redirected into financing clean energy rather and community-based energy systems? We are also looking at how to make sure that in the just transition phase, we are calling for restoration and reparations from environmental harm. When you count our communities in Africa where coal and oil and gas have been, most of the communities have been left in a very bad state. Their water bodies have been polluted, their land has been polluted, they can't do anything. So for us to ensure that there's a just transition, we need to ensure and we call for full environmental rehabilitation of degraded land and polluted water. And make sure that there's corporate accountability for those who have polluted the land and in the environment. We are also asking for and proposing a transition that builds like resilient and caring public systems. For us, we believe that just transition is not just about energy systems, but it goes beyond energy systems. It cuts across healthcare, food sovereignty, transportation, communication. And so if we are talking about just transition, what we need to ensure is that all these systems and all these processes are actually factored in the transition. And it's more about making life better for people and a system change from the system that we have been in that has been a very bad and extractive system. We are also then asking and demanding for democracy and decentralization, more of participation of people and communities in the processes and not decisions made for us without us. We are also talking about our energy systems and our energy systems being designed by ourselves as Africans and not designed for us by other people. When we talk about just transition in Africa as well. The other thing we are also demanding for is economic justice, not just green growth, and that we are calling for a transition that prioritizes people's needs over corporate profit, and that a transition that includes like decent, dignified work and public services for people, and an economic model that doesn't exploit workers, but one that is actually going to help us and take us out of poverty in Africa. We are hoping that the transition, we are planning and hoping that the transition is, if it's just, is going to reduce inequality, but not deepen it as it has been. The other thing that we are also saying is that when it comes to the just transition, we are demanding for a just transition that is centered on inclusion of gender and youth workers, youth and then the workers in the community. So far, most of the time, they have been excluded in all the processes, and a just transition, the process that will make sure that they are included. Gender equity must be embedded in all policies. Youth must be seen as leaders and decision makers, not just beneficiaries. Workers in fossil fuel sector must be protected, reskilled, and included in planning and just transition pathways. The last thing I would say is that we are talking about also the financing that we are demanding for climate finance rooted in justice and not debt when it comes to just transition in Africa. And we are saying that climate finance must come from grant in the form of grants, not loans, and it must flow directly to communities, not through intermediaries and consultants. We are also calling for real funding for loss and damage and adaptation and public services, not carbon markets or corporate greenwashing that keeps on coming up. We are saying this is not just aid, this is justice, and this is climate reparations. And so for us, we believe that for the process to be just, there should be no inclusion in the process, exclusion in the process, but more of inclusion. And we want to also have a just transition where we are not actually building or attending to someone else's agenda, but our own agenda as Africa, that we are building our own system. We are actually building a system which is rooted in justice, dignity, and sovereignty. For us, a truly just, popular, and inclusive just transition must be African-led, people-powered, and grounded in the lived realities of our communities. And we believe that together as Africans, we can build that. Thank you.
Thank you, Marina, for all your information. In fact, the transition pass also through. It's important to reinforce, establish an agenda of corporative responsibility and return the role of the state in people's lives and at the same time, another economy that can proportion a better living conditions. And now giving the floor to the next invited person. Before, I'd like to inform that our comrade Tom from Gugutu from the Indigenous Network from the United States can't enter in our initial session. And now I'd like to give the floor to Fabiola Latino from the National Collective of Electricians and the Opera Platform and Campesino of Water in Brazil. Thank you, Kelvin. Good morning, everyone here. Like to give a little bit the view about our platform, about the energetic transition. We need to understand first what we are. We are an organization who could have many institutions together in the field and in the city, including electricians, movements for dams, teachers, workers from the oil field, students, so that we could have a debate about the energetic matrix, not only from Brazil, but also in worldwide. And within this platform, we started several activities in the intention to try to find convergence points, because there are different opinions of what happens with us. What are our convergence points for a fair energetical transition? It's clear we are in a worldwide economical crisis that has several aspects. It's a political, geopolitical, environmental crisis, and even moral. And we see clearly that there is a displacement of the American supremacy to other countries, BRICS, but even stronger China, and to guarantee this supremacy, this hegemony that they had before. There are process of war, genocide, as the case of Palestine, also the input of financial capital over our South global countries, because a form of domination is to be present in our territories. And this interest happens with the financial capital to have a domain in our countries, especially here in Brazil. Our private and state companies, when we have the financial capital, international capital in our state companies, accelerate the privatization process. We have another aspect showing what is the energetic transition in our country. So our energetic transition is being disputed nowadays. And the solution that we have for our countries, it's not a true solution. What the capital imposes to us are not solutions. They win in each step they give over our territories. When we just are talking about the energetic transition without thinking in integration with public services, industry, transport, health, education, technological transfer, it means that we will continue to be submitted to our logic, their logic. And these discussions, when we are discussing about the energy transition that we want. Today we have the multinational companies who appropriate our territories. They sell, distribute our land. So there are consequences in our territories, while they generate carbon credit to continue polluting their own countries. And if we think about our case in Brazil, that our energy matrix was already different in regards to the North Global. So why the acceleration? Because it interests who domains us. So we need to have this view that this crisis is being posed to us from the top to the bottom. And we need to find a solution about an energetic transition, a fair transition that can be effective, that doesn't generate energetical poverty. And this solution has generated poverty in the territories. It has the exclusion of gender of peoples in the territory. So through the platform, we are doing a basic document to lead us to COP30. So we are working with a group of affected people, of campesines, works from the energetic, from all sector. We have teachers and students, and we want to converge opinions to work on COP30 in Belém. Thank you, Fabiola. With no doubt, it's very important, the contribution that this platform of the Brazilian articulation has given us recently, mainly about the transformation, this discussion of the transformation or the building of a new energetic model in our country, in Brazil, and also being serving as an example of a process of articulation between workers, affected campesines, populations, but also urban, in a process that being discussed and built for a model, a popular energetic model that we want. Thank you. So we are wrapping up here. I said before that Tom can't be with us today here. So this is our initial diagnosis. We have contributions from different parts of the world. And now we would like to pass to the second part of our webinar, which is the process of discussion that will happen now in our breaking rooms. I would like to ask Annabella to share the screen with us, please. Yes.
I'll take advantage here now for the people that are seeing this. Maybe if we can put in the chat, what is the idea that really impacted you the most of all the contributions? This is how we'll be able to construct our understandings that we have in common of what we've heard. And in this process of synthesis will assist us and support us to see what exactly people are thinking and saying. Please put in the chat those points that really impacted you from this first panel. And then I would like to share my screen so we can see what the questions are that we're going to be asking here in the breakout rooms. They're very simple questions. Okay, let me break it to a big screen. Give me 1 second. All right.
Okay, Annabella, then afterwards she speaks French. She's a polyglot. She speaks in many languages. That's great. Very good. Now we will, as Annabella showed, if we have the elements, it would be important to send them through the chat because we have a team for this to synthesize. They are helping to get the elements of the speeches also to the chat. So let's go to the second part of our webinar, where we are going to split us in different rooms for having debates with two key questions that will guide us during this work in the next 30 minutes. The first one, if we have elements where the speeches here, and also the time, we have a short time, even though we have the opportunity having different people around the world and with different perspectives, speeches of workers, communities with their processes. We talk about the climate movement, different perspectives, but the first question is if there are important elements that didn't come up in these speeches of diagnosis and debates in the constructions that we've been doing. And the second is with this diagnostic that we had here, these realities that our panelists brought, how can we transform together in a collective way this reality and build, in fact, a transition that dialogues with all the experiences, the struggles, and with these different perspectives from the workers, communities, sectors impacted by this transition. So the idea now, Annabella will orient these break groups, but these questions are the key questions to be discussed in these break rooms. And so we will have in all these rooms one room with Spanish, English, and Portuguese and French. We will have some comrades helping us reporting everything. We know 30 minutes is just a little time, short time to discuss everything. So these comrades will help us to bring key points of these discussions that will happen in the break rooms. But so we will have all the report, and in the next dates we are going to examine it, this regarding the different regarding the axis. So we will have these comrades that will help us inside these classrooms. So in Spanish, Lala and Ivan, they will help us to organize these points. In the English room, Leon, who is here, and from War Want, and I can help as well because I didn't see João Pedro here. In the Portuguese room, Gilberto Servins, who is here from MAB, and Natalia from the World March from Women in Brazil. And in the French room, Amarie, I didn't see here. Yeah.
Yes, she's very active in
Great,
the
she's
chat,
here.
actually.
So we will help us here to synthesize these key points. So she will help now.
I would like to share the principal instructions. This wasn't our original idea, but as social movements, we always adapt to the circumstances. Now, we're going to share a link that will take you out of this call and bring you to the breakout rooms. If you have any problems in this transference and your transition, hopefully it's just, please advise us, okay? Everybody has a contact that you can advise us. We could possibly maybe even better for what everything might happen. Maybe we could put as the main contact here if there's any problems, so nobody gets lost. Thanks for the hearts. If anything happens, please send us a message, an email to any of the coordinators that have been hosting this event. I'm going to send the link. When you click on the link, you will go to another call where you will be discussing in the breakout room according to your language. So we'll see you in a minute there. And we're going to be distributed according to our languages in that space. And then we will all come back here to do the feedback and to close for them. So now I'm going to send a link. Cross your fingers. Please imagine that my camera that's happening with the technical is already there. So I know that somebody's there to receive you. So we'll see you in a little bit on the other side of the virtual link. We are 127 people. See if we're going to be 127 when we transition into our breakout groups. I'll see you in a bit. And we'll come back here possibly between 30 to 40 minutes. But first, let's go, and then we'll see what we'll do when we get back. Okay.
Andrea, all this Francesca thesis, I have to take a picture of it. Oh, this is very fun. Okay, so here we're back. Kelvin, you also appeared as Francesca, so you can rename yourself. Is the interpretation working? Can you just let me know? Is it okay? So, que viva la cumbre y el caos social y bien, todos. Estaremos bien, compañeros y compañeras. Sebastián.
You've lifted your hand.
I will speak slowly.
I'm gonna.
So the interpretation can work well. All the interpretation is working well. We've been interpreting into all the 4 languages. I'm just asking for people who are going to speak from now on, who will report the break room discussions, who mention before they start speaking which language they're going to speak in, and please stick to just one language so it's easier for the interpreters, so there's no mixing up of languages. So please stick to one language.
Thank you for everyone having come back. What we're going to do now is we're going to listen to some brief reflections from the comrades that were facilitating the workout groups, the break rooms, the working groups. And then after that, we'd like to share what are the next steps in this process in the preparation towards the cupola of the People's Summit. I don't know who would like to go first. Maybe the English team could go first. Leo, would you like to go first, please? Are you here with us? Can you start, please, Leo?
Thank you, Annabella. I'm Leon speaking in English, although I'm listed as Francesca. I don't know how that's happened. How long do we have? Like 2 minutes? Okay. Yeah, in our group, we had a great discussion around the corporate transition that is the one that's being sold to us by mining companies and lots of governments, which is based on extraction, displacement, dispossession. Sorry, I got distracted again by seeing my name as Francesca. No, and a people's just transition, which incorporates the many different ways in which communities have resisted these mining projects, the acknowledgement of different understandings of not development as such, but of what it means to live a human life, I guess, in terms of people not measuring things solely in terms of economic value and growth and expansion, an understanding of the need for sufficiency of both energy and consumption of material goods, so that for many people there is an overconsumption of unnecessary and harmful products, particularly mainly many people in the north and in the rich parts of the world. There was an acknowledgement of the fact that for lots of people, the periphery core relationship, the north-south dynamic, reproduces itself also in richer countries. So you see parts of Italy, for instance, where heavy industry is being placed and among more marginalized communities. And so, yeah, but a lot of discussion around extractivism and the models of transition that are being promoted and how important it is to challenge those arguments that are made in favor of continued extraction and exploitation. Also, an acknowledgement of the need for a gendered analysis analysis the gender dimensions of work and the unpaid labor of social reproduction, which is disproportionately undertaken by women, and that an acknowledgement along with that it's not just that the transition cannot just be about energy. It also has to be about social reproduction, care, and it also has to acknowledge the health benefits of a true just transition and the harms of the unjust transitions, whether those are people whose rivers are being polluted in Zambia and having to take mining companies to court, or whether that's people who are opposing the gas production and pipeline in more wealthy countries. I think probably that's about 2 minutes, right? And sorry, final point, if you permit me, a lot of enthusiasm and hope around the People's Summit process as being one in which we can articulate the unified no and the many yeses of the alternatives that we need to weave to challenge this corporate transition.
Thank you, Leon. And yes, there were also suggestions about trying to use the People's Summit as the place where we have the tough conversations as well, the ones that we struggle a little bit sometimes. And that I thought it was a good point from Kirtana in that room, in the little bit I just navigated. I'll pass back to Kelvin to continue with the coordinating the report backs. Kelvin.
Thanks, Annabella. Now we pass to the channel, the Portuguese channel, and we are going to call Natalia and Gilberto Savinsky. Good morning, comrades. All the comrades. Gilberto was the facilitator of the group, and I was accountable to report and give a summary of our conversation. I'm Natalia Lobo from the World March for the Women, and I will present in Portuguese. In our group, we had a big debate about the words, the terminology we use when we are doing this debate. So we had several speeches bringing the element about the fact around our popular perspective. We should be talking about energetic transformation and transition and not transition, because we don't want to transition within this capitalist system. So we should focus in the word transformation and not stay in the logic of transition only. And also criticize also about energetic transition and not a model, in fact, and also about the terms, model of terms, and also the need to use the word popular for a fair transition. So using this word places us more in the field of the popular field, and also be very clear what we understand that fair is. Many people has used this term fair, but we understand what is fair and what is unfair. It's different. So we need to highlight what we understand what fair is. And also, when we have this debate, also we need to remember about the food systems, the change of the use of the land, several transitions that we need to do that are not only in the field of energy transition. And also all the speeches reinforced the fact that we are transitioning, we are doing these changes in order to change a model. We don't want to stuck in this model that is in the hands of the transnational companies. It's not only a technological change of production metrics, but is a change of a kind of model. And it was spoken a lot that this idea of fair transition wasn't created by the Global South, but we need to think about the proposals that come from the Global South. What are our policies, our elaboration about this theme regarding what I was saying before, and also about the importance to bring the need to overcome all the oppression. We need to think that the transformation can't keep class oppression, gender, and class. We can't reinforce the environmental racism in the territories. Also, the importance to contain the expansion of fossil fuel. It's a debate that were talked about a lot in this period. And also the importance to bring the voice of the territories in the debates, the voice of the communities, the peoples in these territories that has the impact of this fossil fuel exploration, and also want to have renewable energy. So we need to bring this to the debate. And also the importance to develop more what we understand as energetic democracy is something that is in the content of our access, but we need still to develop more this, and also bring the importance of the dimension of the participation of civil society, the social movements, popular participation in the conduction of public plans of the governments around the transition. So our group Bem Brasileiro, so we were talking in our group in the Brazil context. We have a plan of energy transition that was launched more than 1 year ago, but it's been in a very centralized way without the participation of the civil society that needs to make visible this participation more now that the Brazilian government is in the presidency of this COP. So we need to be a leader through the example. So we talked about a lot about to centralize the energy as an alternative that some comrades brought here. And also it's a form of energy generation that we bet a lot, but it's also a complex form of energy generation. And when we do this debate, we need to evaluate it as a whole. The decentralization of renewable energy, they are very unstable, so are dependent, they need to rely on batteries. So the centralized generation, it has impacts. When we do these debates, we need to do the debate as a whole, because the energy generation always generate impacts, and it has to do with several production chains. So we need to deepen more in this debate. And also we talked about the importance of the safeguard in the renewable energies and the environmental license that was approved in Brazil, allowing several forms of generation of energy that are impacting the environment. So we need to talk about this question of environmental license, and also public policies to support centralized energy generation. So other alternatives we defend that needs to be supported by public policies. Thank you, Natalia. We see there are several similarities appearing within the access support of the workers, participation, return of the support by the states. So many things that are similar. So we'd like to see if we will agree here to extend to more 5 minutes before we finish. So we'd like to extend for more 5 minutes before we finish to talk with the channel that speaks French and Spanish. So asking that the Spanish channel, Ivan, to talk if there are some similarities within what was already stated in the other groups, so we can synthesize this, bring the points that didn't appear yet, that dialogue in other forms.
Thank you very much, Kelvin, comrades. There are luckily a lot of similarities in the vision the supports that were given here in our discussion. The group was quite trade union or representatives. It was quite a strong representation of the region, but also there were other people from other sectors, different countries as well. And a representative, as like was mentioned before, I think that we can highlight the idea that the answers are articulated and respond to different as well. The state has a role. It's impossible to think in any model where, if it's democratic, including a response to the climate crisis, what is the role of the state? With the content of a democratic transition, just popular, that has been mentioned before. The pressure that we are responding to, that we're confronting with regards to the framework of privatism, national bilingualism, it continues to be the main framework, for example, with investments, Global Gateway, what they're implanting in the countries through the European governments in Latin America, CELAC, and what this means for the dispute in the region in our territories to protect our common goods, but especially at the service of the war agenda, the agenda by the United States in the military industrial complex, in the appropriation of rare metals, and that the governments locally here, for example, El Salvador, that are becoming part of this framework of an agenda, of an authoritarian framework. And then the other hand, quickly jumping to the other point, we need, with regards to the case of our region, what happened with Esquaçu, to force to have the guarantee of the defense of human rights and defenders, environmental to confront the criminalization, accusation. We live in a region of violence that they're defenders. Question around the consultation, which is free, informed, and prior. And other questions that were also raised around the impacts upon our health caused by climate change, especially within our communities, and the need to have public answers that recognize the historic response to the crisis, especially with regards to breastfeeding, the role of the women, the production of the family agricultural with answers that have already been proven, and the importance also of the reference to the international references, as the recent consultation by the Inter-American Court on Human Rights can be used, and it's quite useful to show this direction that we want to be going in and use it as a basis for our arguments with regards to the crisis of climate collapse upon the communities. And the role also that's very important of the legally binding treaty against transnational corporations' human rights as a response to this concern. There are other elements that were also just, but I think I'll leave it at that for now. There were contributions, there were materials that were supported here from Latin America with the democratization of just and a fair transition, which will be later on shared. Sorry, I'll leave it at that.
Oui, merci. Je vais rapporter en français.
So I said I was only speaking one language.
Donc, activer l'interprétation.
A Marie, ela sabe falar inglês, porque a gente não solicitou para o francês.
Can Marie speak English?
Please.
So false alert, sorry. So I'm going to report back in English from the French speaking group. So we started by elaborating on mineral extractions and how this is so central to the transformation because of all the different aspects of the impacts on polluting waters, more greenhouse gas emissions when the minerals are treated, the land grabbing related to it, and also the fact that mine expansion are preventing sustainable models to emerge, such as agroecology and all this economy that we want to see happening. We also elaborated on the concept of energetic sovereignty, which is less well known than the concept of food sovereignty, that has been at the heart of many struggles in the past. But energy sovereignty is also a way to think how we end our dependence on minerals and the fact that we are wasting so much energy. So we have this impression we need more energy, but for what? So we really expanded on this connection with the land and with how we also need to end monocultures, for example, for food sovereignty and also energy sovereignty. And on the solutions, how we work together, a few ideas there. We spoke a lot on the link between debt and extraction, how countries are forced into doing more extraction because of the situation of debts. And one of the demands, for example, for COP30 could be to have real transparency on mineral extractions, and so that we can link with the situations of the countries. Many solutions, very practical as well, from organizations to work with diasporas. So the link between peoples, Global South and Global North. And I liked very much this example of what is done in West Africa with agroecology boot camps, with activities on how to produce biopesticides, for example, and also so the practice, but also the theory and this ideology of consuming less resources and working on peasants' rights. And also the very practical avenue we have to work with workers is to insist on the impacts on their health. So including for workers who are already working in the fossil fuel sector or else. I'll stop there. I have many notes. I will share with the facilitators after.
Thank you so much, Marie. And I will speak in English now. Because we are reaching the end of our webinar and we wanted to stay in touch because, of course, we didn't expect this workshop to cover everything and agree on everything. So this is what's going to happen. We are going to be bringing all of these inputs together. Oh, what's happening here? My computer is, here it goes. We are going to be bringing all these inputs into an updated document, you know, the one you saw at the beginning. Now this has to evolve with all of your inputs. And we are going to be communicating with all of those that want to be involved through that little QR code in WhatsApp. For the ones that are used to QR codes, you can now take a picture. For the others, we are sending right now in the chat the link to the WhatsApp group. There we are going to keep everyone informed on the evolution of the document. Let us also know, either each one of the coordinating organizations or in the group, if you are organizing events between now and Cúpula dos Povos, because we are building a calendar of events related to just popular and inclusive transitions. Do also share with us any inputs that you think is relevant for this conversation, because the People Summit and the Political Committee is gathering also all sort of inputs that are relevant for building up our declaration. On more like concrete things as well, next 3 days there are going a global mobilization going, of which this event is also part of the Draw the Line mobilization. There is more information about it if you want to communicate about just transition in that context. And for the ones interested in mobilizing towards COP, different groups from the different organizations and collectives that have been part of this event are also organizing towards that space. And there you can find initial link on those demands. And based on your interest, we can have also a separate conversation about what this convergence means also in that space. But that's separate from our organizing effort as part of Cúpula dos Povos, which is building our own demands, our own expectations. So there we are. I wanted to particularly thank the interpreters that have been amazing and patient and allow our work together around the world. Thanks also to the Fossil Fuel Non-Proliferation Treaty for giving us their platform to organize today. Thank you also to all those in the backstage helping us making this happen, our speakers and facilitators, and of course you all, that despite us being 10 minutes late, you are still with us in many, many numbers. So that's really very encouraging. We're looking forward for building something really strong at Cúpula dos Povos and beyond. So stay in touch, connect to the WhatsApp group so that we stay together there. You probably saw already the link. There are many, many links, but I'm copying that again myself, that I'm not called Francesca D'Artesi. And you can see this is Anna sending. And so go there and we are going to continue the conversation from there. Kelvin, you have the last word.
Thank you, everyone. Again, I'd like to thank you for the participation, and we invite you, we call you to be part and build the summit's people, and we continue with our access. As Annabella brought it here, our proposal is to gather all the information here, all the documents, to have an initial document to work on next week. And at the same time in the group, we will be working in this work document about the discussion of the transitions. And at the same time, we will send the activities interconnected that we are building, and we want as well that to involve them and put it all together in the process that in November in Belém do Pará.